Okay. From the study of Esther, we've learned that God is providential, and that is, he's in charge of everything. But tomorrow, I still have to get up and walk the dog, go to the gym, run my errands, make it to work, etc., 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 etc. So a fair question is this: what do I do with my decision-making and my accountability in a world where God is utterly in charge? That's a great question, and we'll talk about it today on Beyond the Notes. Okay, two things are true. Number one, and this is unavoidable from study of any part of God's Word, but it certainly comes through in Esther, and I believe we've made it clear in our study of Esther, God really is providential. Second thing that I know to be true is I'm not a wind-up toy. I'm not a robot. I'm not a creature that lacks volition or decision-making capacity. I certainly don't lack accountability, and I've got to figure stuff out, and I've got to move forward through my life. So the question is, how do I interact with the fact of God's providence? What do I, as a working relationship with the utter providence of God, how does that play out? Well, let me first kind of deal with a negative. You are not responsible to guess what God is providentially up to in every set of circumstances. That is, God's unfolding will is not like the old street con, the shell game where the pea is under one of the halves of the walnut shell, and if you don't pick the right one, you lose. God's will is not like that for the believer. You're not challenged to peer into your circumstances or the unfolding of your life and make accurate predictions regarding what God is providentially up to. That won't work. Nobody can do it. And if someone tells you they know God's will for you because of some mysterious or mystical exercise, I wouldn't pay that person a great deal of attention. But there are some practical and biblical things that you can do that should make a difference in how you approach decision making and how you approach the confidence with which you're living out your life, because God is completely in charge. The big one, sort of the starting point, is trust in His providence. That is, you really are, if you are a child of God, you are a child of the true King of Kings, the true Lord of Lords, the one who is the author of both Romans 8:28, where the promise is that all things will work together for good for those who love the Lord, and the other sort of bookend text that I introduced on the Lord's Day, that it is God who is working all things after the counsel of His will. That is, His providential authority is why all things work together for good for His children. Trust that. Trust it on your best day. Trust it on your worst day. Trust it when you're really, really getting your way, and trust Him when you're not. He's providential. And learning to orient yourself in an attitude of trust, an attitude of thanksgiving, an attitude of reliance upon that providence is a big part of the battle. Second, if you want to know what God thinks, listen to what God has said. He may not have spoken to your precise situation. He may not have given you specific guidance on whether you're supposed to go to Whole Foods, Publix, or Aldi. But He has spoken in His Word about any number of things that you could know to be His will. Just two very, very quick ones. Just a quick search on the will of God or God's will reveal 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 3 says that sanctification, that is the process of becoming more like Jesus, is God's will for you, specifically in the area of sexuality. Know and do God's will. be sexual only in the context of marriage, be married for life, obey all of what God talks about with sexuality in his word. And that will contribute to your sanctification, and that is God's will. And then just a chapter later, 1 Thessalonians 5:13 says, gratitude in all circumstances is God's will for you. What's the point? Asking for a clearer understanding of God's will in an area where he has not spoken, while at the same time not conforming to his will in an area where he has spoken, is a bit of a losing proposition. I've heard it said like this by an old pastor friend of mine. If you will obey God in what he has said, then you will develop the capacity to know him and obey him in areas where he perhaps has not spoken as directly. Be a student of God's word. So number one, trust to the reality of his providence. Rest in the fact that he is in charge, which means you neither are nor are you expected to be. Trust in his providence, in the unfolding of the events around your life. Second, be a student of God's word. Third, pray and ask for wisdom. James chapter 1, verse 5, if you lack wisdom, ask. Wisdom, one short definition, is the capacity to see life from a God's eye view perspective. That is to see all of my life, not from my own point of view, with my own interests and my own agenda and my own self-centeredness, but instead to sort of come up out of that and seek to see my life as a part of a much larger unfolding tapestry that is the Lord and what he's up to. And even if I don't understand that tapestry of God's larger will, of which I have a small part to play, even if I can't comprehend that larger picture, know that it's there. And wisdom is the seeking to understand. All right, Lord, help me see the larger thing that you're up to and my little part in it. If you don't have that wisdom, James 1:5 says, pray and ask for it. So trust in his providence, be a student of his word with an eye toward obedience, not just heaping up knowledge. Number 3, pray. And number 4, connect to wise counsel. This is one of the ways that the church is to function in our lives. We are to be a part of an interconnected fellowship of people who are following Jesus alongside us, people who know us, people who care about us, people who have peered into our lives, and people into whose lives we have peered. If I've got some notion of what I think God might be up to, and I confer with 3 or 4 godly friends, and none of what I'm saying makes sense to anybody but me, it may be because it's nonsense. It may be, at the very least, that I ought to go slow in pursuing something that I believe to be God's will, but I am the only one that can see it. I'm not Moses. It's really, really unlikely that some area of his providential leadership will be open only to me. He's working all things together for the good of those who love him. And if you're a follower of Jesus, that's you. So rest in that. Yes, pursue passionate obedience. Yes, strive against your own sin. Yes, walk with him. Yes, seek to grow as a believer, knowing that at the end of the day, he is even stewarding that process. Obey him, love him, and draw close to him. And the idea of his providence will come to be one that you, hold very, very dearly. This is a takeaway from the study of the book of Esther. that his providence is a great, great blessing to those who love him. And unimaginably frightening, by the way, to those who don't. But that would be for another episode. By now, I hope that you've subscribed to Be on the Notes. I hope you're with us every week, and we look forward to being with you again. God bless you.